to help us understand some of the common assumptions about diet and provide a counter narrative that centers the voices and experiences of older adults. We hope this topic will increase your awareness so that all of us will better understand the opportunities and the challenges associated with aging. Again, I want to thank Justine McGovern and June Towns for working behind the scenes to put all these things together. And so I think this is going to be the first of a very opportunity for us to learn a lot of things. I see some of my colleagues from the Washington, D.C. area as well. So this is really good news that we are able to really each a broad a topic of or a broad constituent of people. So thank you so much. And I look forward to hearing all about it.
Thank you, Dean Harrison. One more little bit of business. We are recording the session. I should have said that right away, and I apologize. I also have a few extra thank yous. I want to thank Jonathan Rose, who basically is such a huge help across HS2N, which is our school. So thank you, Jonathan. I don't know if you're here, but for everything that you do and for your help for this in particular.
Richard
Richard Relcom and his team, Erica Reinhardt and Hope Linton, who are from our communications department, who not only generated the flyer, but also disseminated it and made a great push to get the word out, which is reflected in our attendance. So really huge thank you. Migdio Dominguez is our tech setup and support. Nothing could happen without Migdio. I could say the same. Nothing could happen without Ramon Belliard and Charlie Chung. I saw Charlie here earlier. Maybe you could give a little wave. These are support from our department in particular. Okay. Just gonna check my notes to make sure I've said everything that I have to say. Recording, survey at the end. Okay, let's now go into our speaker session. I can see Kate Burt here if you want to give a little wave for anybody who hasn't noticed you before. So as Dean Harrison said, Kate Burt is a member of our department. I'll just say, she's a wonderful colleague. She's a great scholar. She's an innovative thinker. She has a great curious mind. She's an inspiration to us all. But more specifically, Dr. Kate Burt is an associate professor in the Department of Health Promotion and Nutrition Sciences at Lehman College at the City University of New York. She teaches courses in cultural humility and foodways, community food systems, and leadership. Dr. Burt's research explores how systemic racial bias and whiteness impact the dietetics profession and dietary recommendations. Dr. Burt has received national awards and recognition, including the Outstanding Educator Award of 2021 from the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, the Jerome Crace Award for Outstanding Research for Associate Professors from CUNY in 2025, and will be inducted to the National Academy of Practice in Nutrition and Dietetics in March 2026. We're very proud of Kate. Dr. Burt serves on the advisory board for Food and Planet as the vice president of World Critical Dietetics and is the current editor-in-chief for the Journal of Critical Dietetics. Enough from me. I give you Kate Burt. I'm going to silence myself. If you have any questions, please feel free to start putting them in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you, Justine. I really want to echo the thanks to everyone who's making today possible. Everybody Justine listed, and especially, June and Dean Harrison and Evelyn for the work to bring this symposium together today. So I'm going to share my screen. Thumbs up from any. Great. Thank you, Justine. Got it. Today I'm going to share a little bit of my work on understanding structural bias as it relates to health. As Justine just mentioned, most of my work is in dietary health, but because weight and diet are so closely linked, a lot of the work that I do also examines, how we understand body size related to dietary health. So thanks again to everybody. And in order to really kind of dive into this today, I want to start by humanizing my very theoretical work. So I want to start with a couple folks. Here we have Dorothy and James. This might be a familiar story to many of you who work with older adults. And if not, if you're a student or you're here today, this is a very common story that you might see in a healthcare setting. Dorothy and James are both older adults. They have effectively the same life circumstances. They both live in the Bronx. They both continue to work part-time. Both are 70 years old. Dorothy's weight relative to her height, aka her BMI, is within a category labeled as normal, whereas James's BMI puts him in a category labeled overweight. Both are otherwise healthy with relatively normal labs. But Dorothy and James's physicians interpret these data very differently. Dorothy is likely to hear that she's doing a good job maintaining a healthy weight, while James is likely going to be flagged as somebody who needs education about a healthy diet or about weight loss. Dorothy is assumed to eat very healthily and appropriately, whereas James is assumed to eat maybe unhealthily or large quantities or not get enough exercise. Dorothy leaves her visit feeling like she's doing everything well and needs no changes, whereas James leaves concerned about his own health. And over the next couple of weeks, what we see play out is very different than how their health was perceived by physicians. When they both develop the same mild respiratory infection a couple weeks later, James drinks and eats less because he isn't feeling well, like many of us do when we are sick. But overall, he makes a quick recovery, maintaining his strength and returning to his usual activity quickly. But Dorothy doesn't. She drinks and eats less because she isn't feeling well also. But that results in losing a little bit of weight and a little bit of water, which causes her to become dehydrated and fatigued. It makes her a little bit weaker. It makes her recovery a little bit slower. And this is perceived as expected recovery from somebody who's in their 70s. James's recovery, given his health concerns, is actually kind of labeled miraculous or unexpectedly good. And everyone is very relieved. But the data show that both of these recoveries are actually expected. James's is not miraculous. And because older adults with a higher BMI often recover more robustly from illness than older adults with a lower BMI. So it makes it seem like this huge paradox where an overweight BMI actually results in better health compared to a normal weight BMI, which results in worse health. The reason that this seems like a paradox, well, it is termed a paradox within the kind of medical and health communities right now, but it's actually not, because overweight BMI is consistently associated with lower mortality, better recovery after illness and surgery, greater metabolic reserve during times of stress, including illness, and reduced frailty risk overall. So in older adults, a quote unquote normal BMI can actually mask frailty and be perceived as healthy, whereas a higher BMI can actually signal resilience. And that's not how health practitioners often understand it. So it seems very much like a paradox. The gap and the reason why this seems like a paradox is actually simple and related to bias in how we understand BMI and how we understand weight itself. So it's a flaw in the tools, and it's reflective of our societal fat phobia. There are 4 distinct layers of bias influencing this paradox: physiological, ideological, scientific, and institutional bias embedded in how we create, apply, and interpret BMI that I'm going to go into now. So that first one, that first layer of bias, BMI, really, not we, but BMI is ignoring human physiology and the structural factors that influence body weight. It is simply a poor measure of health, but it's also a poor measure of body size and the important factors of body size. For instance, it doesn't distinguish between muscle mass or fat mass, and it doesn't take into account other factors that influence body size, a few of which I have listed on this slide here. You'll see on the left side. That includes strength, balance, mobility. Those are related to health. Nutrition status influences weight. Weight also influences nutrition status. Medication has great effect on body size, and so do social determinants of health. In fact, the greatest influence of body size right now seems to be genetics. About 40 to 50% of differences in body weights are explained by genetics alone. And so that means that somebody's genetics predisposes them to a certain body size or a certain weight range that has nothing to do with what they eat, or that is predisposed before they've even taken a step. So genetics creates this background of weight tendency that BMI does not account for. So we have BMI ignores physiological influences of body size. BMI also ignores the cultural and ideological roots of fat phobia. BMI is not from any health data. It's actually from cultural data. I'm not going to go into the full backstory of fat phobia. If you're interested in it, I actually encourage you to read the book pictured on this slide called Fearing the Fat Body. This delves into, this is Dr. Strings' work on the racial origins of fat phobia. But I am going to give you kind of the too long, didn't read version. So fat phobia is really solidified in our history as a character flaw. In Christian moral teachings, it's really interprets fatness as gluttony, associates it with excess or with sin. And so thinness becomes associated with virtue and with discipline. And these ideas get racialized and gendered over time as well. By the time we were kind of in the Victorian era, thinness was directly tied to whiteness and to virtue and prosperity, so social prosperity. And so this idea of like white, middle class, European women were held up with this ideal body type, one that is solidified in thinness. At that time, the trend in fatness was out, and racial science in the US in the form of eugenics was well underway. And so what we saw in the 1700s is that scientists were starting to medicalize the pathology of larger body weight. We saw scientists publish about how the big bellies of some BIPOC women were associated with inferiority, and then this became woven into how we interpreted body size. So BMI was created in a culture that already had a preference for thinness. And then in the late 1800s and early 1900s, the MetLife Insurance Company, which many of us in New York will know the building, the MetLife Insurance Company wanted to know about risk, mortality risk. So they made a table using mortality data of moderately affluent white men. And that became the basis of BMI tables we use today. One statistical deviation became overweight and underweight. Anything outside of that, outside of the data collected from these moderately affluent white men, were considered other than the norm, outside the norm, and ultimately unhealthy. Then this leads us to bias number 3, which is actually the creation of the BMI scale. So Ansel Keys, who founded the Mediterranean diet, maybe some of you have even heard of him or know him today. He took those averages and he created categories of health from that. So he did the statistical deviation from the average. And when he did that, he began connecting that to work that he was doing in nutritional epidemiology. He never validated that system. He never validated the equation for BMI itself as correlated with health. And so what he found when he did his research was that he assumed that the folks with quote unquote normal BMIs had the best health outcomes, and then proved that through his research. And that's how population averages became the norm for body weight. By grounding BMI in the bodies of moderately affluent white men and then normalizing that within health and medical data, that becomes a universal reference point about what health should look like, about what bodies should look like in the absence of any data related to health. And importantly, BMI was never developed to measure health, as I just described, and was never validated against it. So it's never been validated even against the populations who weren't included originally: women, people of color, older adults. So we see large groups left out, and now it's misapplied to those groups. It's especially misapplied to those groups. BMI became so powerful because it was convenient, not because it was accurate. So first, insurers started adopting it from that MetLife and the nutritional epidemiology data that we had. Then clinicians were required to use it. So the goal was to simplify billing and screening and risk categories, not to actually improve patient care or people's health. So this weight-centric approach gets locked in even more tightly when obesity was medicalized in the 1990s and early 2000s, because pharmaceutical companies wanted to sell weight loss drugs. And this idea that weight loss, everybody needed to lose weight, including older adults, needed to lose weight to be healthy, just became status quo. So let's go back to Dorothy and James. What happens when these biases enter the exam room, especially for older adults? For somebody like Dorothy with a BMI in the normal range, her weight is interpreted as good, and it masks that frailty or muscle loss, which could happen naturally with age, which does happen naturally with age, right? And she's rarely, if ever, told to gain weight, which would actually improve her health. Whereas James, on the other hand, is labeled non-compliant if he doesn't lose weight. And any negative symptoms that he experiences may be framed as weight-related into the future, despite that there's not a lot of evidence for that. And he's assumed to be delinquent in caring for his own health when he doesn't reach the doctor's dietary goals. So the result is that neither of these older adults has received the care that they needed. This ageism has amplified the undertreatment, this overfocus on weight, and both are ultimately seen as less capable or credible in having a role in their own care. And so the result is worse health outcomes for both of them. Sorry, I just skipped one of my slides. I just want to emphasize that weight stigma among healthcare providers further exacerbates these conditions, right? It's not just BMI, but we do have weight stigma among healthcare professionals, which results in shorter appointments, fewer tests, misdiagnoses, underdiagnoses, and overemphasis on weight loss. Honestly, my list could have gone on this slide, and I didn't want it to because I think the point is fairly well made. That using BMI is harmful. The evidence is there. BMI-based care leads to an overdiagnosis of obesity, an underdiagnosis of malnutrition and frailty, harmful weight loss recommendations, and a false sense of health. None of these actually improve the health of older adults. So what I really want you to leave this session with today, and what I want you to think about, is how we need to use different indicators and take the focus off of weight. Encourage your patients to talk to their providers about grip strength or mobility tests, tests of diet quality, muscle mass, or really understanding their lived realities related to food, stress, and the environments in which they live. We need to recognize that the cultural roots of weight stigma and fat phobia are extremely harmful, especially for older adults. By focusing on the behaviors they can actually control, what they're eating, how much sleep they're getting, how much activity, we can actually improve their health. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kate. What an interesting and timely conversation. You said that obesity was only pathologized in the 90s. I don't even believe that, because I was put on a diet when I was like 8, first of all, in a different country. I didn't grow up in the States. But anyway, and of course, with the surge of pharmaceuticals to, support weight loss, this seems extremely timely. But we will have more discussion at the end of our session. And I do want to point out that on the survey, and the link is going to be posted in the chat, it may already be posted, and we can also send it to you. You will be asked to weigh in on the presentation separately. It's very short. It's 4 questions. So this is something that's very doable, and we'd appreciate your feedback. I also want to mention that to emphasize that, as Dean Harrison had mentioned, this is the first of a series of webinars on nutrition in the life course, and I'll tee us up for the next webinar at the end. Okay. Now we're moving on to Dr. Evelyn Laureano. Evelyn, your little wave so everybody can see you. Welcome. So Evelyn and I worked together when I was a member of the social work department for many years, and we were very engaged, as was Kate, as a matter of fact, with the interdisciplinary minor in aging and rolling out some, more courses around aging. And one of the things that I always really valued and relied on Evelyn for was her practice experience. Um, First of all, she's a very generous colleague, so thank you, Evelyn, for everything you've done over the years. But also she has decades of experience. So Dr. Evelyn Reyes Laureano is an adjunct assistant professor in the Department of Social Work at Lehman College. She teaches two undergraduate courses, social welfare in an aging society, and social services in Latino communities. Before joining Lehman College, Dr. Laureano served as president and CEO of Neighborhood SHOPP, which many of you are probably familiar with. It's an extensive organization, community-based organization in the Bronx, for 28 years. During her tenure at SHOPP, she was instrumental in establishing the social work nonprofit organization as a model agency within the New York City Aging Network. Under her leadership, the organization gained recognition for empowering elders of color through advocacy, leadership, training, and targeted community services. SHOPP's contributions under Dr. Laureano's direction involve a robust portfolio of programs and services, including the operation of 4 senior or older adult centers in the Bronx. These centers are part of a broader commitment to providing essential support and resources to older adults within communities of color. I will now mute myself and hand the mic over to Evelyn. Don't forget to put questions in the chat. I see that the QR is up for the survey. And Evelyn, take it away.
Okay, thank you so much. So again, I'm Evelyn Laureano, and I see just from some of the boxes that are here that there are several staff people from Neighborhood SHOPP that have joined me on. So yay, welcome to everyone and to people from SHOPP. I'm going to be talking about congregate meals in older adult centers, and my title, it's more than just food. So I'm going to be exploring the multifaceted role of congregate meals for healthy aging, and I will be entertaining questions after the presentation is complete. Next. My agenda today, I'm going to be focusing on, give me a sec, I'm going to try and get this. I'm going to be focusing on the purpose and history of congregate meal programs. I'm going to be looking at food insecurity and the role of addressing food insecurity among older adults and the social and emotional benefits these programs provide. I'm also going to be covering challenges and opportunities in delivering these services. I'm going to be using photos from events held at Neighborhood SHOPP's Older Adult Centers, an organization where I served as CEO for over 28 years. So why focus on congregate meals? In a nutshell, congregate meals are vital in combating malnutrition, social isolation, and promoting inclusion. And I'll show you how they are central to healthy aging and community engagement, going beyond basic nutrition to address social, cultural, and emotional needs. Next, please. Okay, so I'm going to start with a short history of the purpose of congregate meal programs. Let's start with some background information. So since its inception, congregate meals have adopted a community-focused approach, offering nutritious meals to older adults in a communal setting. The William Hodson Senior Center here in the Bronx was the first center established in the United States to serve congregate meals to older adults. It opened in 1943, and its primary aim was to reach out to older retirees who had grown increasingly isolated and malnourished. Starting in 1973, congregate meals have been funded through federal legislation under the Older Americans Act. The Administration for Community Living, which administers OAA funding, allocates monies to state and local government agencies and establishes the nutritional standards and regulations for congregate meal operations, ensuring sustainability and adherence to nutrition and safety standards. In New York City, the New York City Department for the Aging supports over 300 older adult centers throughout the 5 boroughs. In 2024, over 6 million meals were served to over 120,000 older adults. In addition, almost 154,000 older adults participated in a variety of recreational, health, wellness, and cultural activities, and all participants are offered information on benefits and entitlements, including screening and application assistance. Providing older adults with diverse programs including arts, education, health, and socialization, SHOPP Older Adult Centers serve as vital community focal points, addressing the needs of the Latino, African American, and Caribbean older adults living in the Bronx. Next, please. So, congregate meals. Addressing food insecurity is the central goal of congregate meal programs. Hunger and malnutrition are significant health issues for the elderly. They contribute to poor health and a higher risk of premature death. Research indicates that older adults are at a higher risk for food insecurity, particularly for those who are living alone and on a limited income. Factors such as multiple chronic conditions, loss of appetite, depression, and medication noncompliance contribute to these issues. In fact, studies found that at least 1 in 4 older persons either reduce their meal portions or skip meals altogether. These factors can make elders of color particularly vulnerable. That's why congregate meal programs are so important. They provide reliable access to nutritious foods for economically vulnerable older adults, helping to combat malnutrition and improve health outcomes. They also offer dependable access to nutritious food, helping alleviate hunger among older adults. They target economically disadvantaged older adults, ensuring that they receive essential nutrition on a regular basis. As a result, programs that focus on reducing malnutrition among older adults aim to enhance overall health and well-being. So let's look at how diversity, income, and poverty impact food insecurity for older New Yorkers. Older New Yorkers are vastly diverse, with many belonging to ethnic minorities, speaking languages other than English, and over 1/3 are living in poverty. In response, congregate meals programs in older adult centers address access, inclusion, and equity by respecting cultural diversity, offering menus that reflect community traditions, and promoting dignity with meals provided free of charge, although a nominal voluntary contribution is encouraged. Next, please. Congregate meals play a vital role in fostering social connections and reducing social isolation among older adults. Social isolation among the elderly is a significant health issue that can lead to various physical and mental health problems. Studies show that social isolation can heighten the likelihood of heart disease and weakened immune function. It can also lead to depression, anxiety, and cognitive decline. These consequences can diminish the quality of life, increase hospital visits, and elevate the risk of premature death among older adults. Shared meals encourage peer engagement, help build friendships, and create a sense of community belonging. It also offers a wide range of opportunities to celebrate cultural diversity, ensuring that older adults feel seen, respected, and included through meals that reflect their traditions and identities. Research findings show that regular participation in congregate meal programs promote emotional well-being among older adults. The mental health benefits include improved mood, reduced depression, and enhanced emotional resilience. And special events involving families strengthen bonds and allow older adults to showcase their contributions, reinforcing their value within the community. Next, please. Sorry. Beyond nutrition, congregate meals serve as gateways to wellness information, benefits, and timely support. They promote health through additional services like SNAP assistance, health screenings, and fitness classes. For instance, SHOPP's caseworkers offer information and assistance in obtaining a wide range of benefits and entitlements. Our past partnership with Lehman's nursing program enables SHOPP to provide on-site wellness support with the assistance of their nursing students. Both staff and trained participant volunteers offer daily fitness activities that are appropriate for older adults with mobility issues. Volunteerism and leadership opportunities empower older adults to take active roles in their centers, enhancing their sense of purpose, confidence, and community ownership. SHOPP could not function without the assistance of volunteer participants who support almost every facet of daily operations in their centers. They organize and conduct center activities and programming. They assist in serving meals and in cleanup. They serve on the center's advisory boards and councils and represent program services within their communities in outreach activities. Intergenerational and community engagement activities help bridge age gaps and reduce ageism, fostering mutual understanding. SHOPP participants host intergenerational activities for local students and organize groups for advocacy and community activism events. Next, please. Now, let's look at the challenges and opportunities in developing services at older adult center congregate meal programs. Specifically, I'll offer some recommendations for engaging in service delivery flexibility, attention to design and atmosphere, and reimagining older adult centers. First, let's dispel some of the assumptions in congregate meals. One well-known myth is that congregate meals are just about the food. In fact, I've shown throughout this presentation that social isolation, they support nutrition, socialization, education, and access to vital services. Another assumption is that only one meal type is allowed. In reality, flexible meal times and menu options are encouraged, and programs can be customized to ensure responsiveness to the diverse needs of participants. Some programs include morning breakfast bars or late afternoon pop-up cafes. It's been a long-held notion that food cannot be taken home. However, properly handled leftovers can, in fact, be sent home for those in need. Older adult center providers recognize that the lunch offered at our centers may be the only full meal that older adult may have that day, and they can establish rules, procedures for this service. Next, the design and atmosphere of centers matter greatly, with thoughtful setups and themed events enhancing engagement. The social atmosphere, the vibe in the dining room sets a positive tone of acceptance and friendship, leading to increased engagement and connectedness. A thoughtful setup, that is attention to table shapes. Is it round? Is it rectangular? How is it set up? Are they all together? Are they, are they separated? The music during the meals, who's in charge of that playlist? And even the dining room decorations all encourage conversation and show respect for culture and diversity. Cultural celebrations, theme days, and decor make meals feel special. For example, like Casa Boricua, traditional holiday meals now in December also includes arroz con gandules and pernil and are served along with musical performances conducted by the talented participants of the center. Finally, best practices and inspirations require a commitment to thinking outside the box. Reimagining older adult centers opens the door to congregate meal program opportunities that encourage creativity among staff and participants for fostering an engaging meal service. At SHOPP, each center has a participant advisory committee that provides valuable input for menu planning. We also consider intergenerational and family events. We've had summer family barbecues weekends. We facilitate student internships and placements. And we also expand the community impact of meal programs. Consider different approaches to fit various sites and meal times, like the morning breakfast bar or the afternoon pop-up cafe that I mentioned earlier. Program staff need to address transportation and mobility issues that can limit participation by offering to arrange either accessorized services or even volunteer escorts. We also need to address language barriers by hiring bilingual staff, translating menus and event calendars into other languages that improve accessibility and promote a welcoming atmosphere. One other consideration is building strategic partnerships with local food pantries to expand access to nutritious foods beyond congregate meals. SHOPP centers often serve as an additional distribution site scheduled once a month, where instead of the seniors going out to that food pantry, the food pantry comes to the seniors. Next, please. I have problem clicking. So in conclusion, I hope that I've made the case that congregate meals in older adult centers offer much more than food. It's where nutrition meets social, cultural, and civic engagement, resulting in a truly multifaceted approach to healthy aging. Congregate meals at older adult centers offer healthy food choices and nutritional support that embrace flexibility, diversity, and community. They foster social interactions that help reduce social isolation and increase social, emotional, and mental well-being among participants. And it allows for innovative and adaptive programming that meets the evolving community needs. This holistic approach ensures that programs remain relevant and effective in promoting healthy aging and community engagement. Exploring how all these elements come together in the delivery of meals at older adult centers can help us to better understand their broader impact and shape a more responsive program design. So, if you want to get more information on congregate meals and the role of older adult centers, on this presentation, which I am assuming that you will receive, you will have some valuable resources and links that you can find. Gracias, and I look forward to your questions. That's it.
Thank you so much, Evelyn. Also, an extremely timely talk, seeing as we're heading into the season of, meals and and holiday meals, and what does that mean, and so forth. So thank you so much. I feel like these two talks are really in conversation. And speaking of conversation, now we're going to go to a more open conversation. I'm going to quick try to look through the chat. There's so many wonderful comments, and I did notice that some people are asking for resources. So what I suggest that if since we won't probably be able to share all resources right now, for those people who are asking for resources, why don't you follow up with us directly, maybe through June Towns or me, or directly with Evelyn or Kate, and we can share those with you specifically if they're specific. A lot of good afternoons. Happy to be there here. Hello, everyone. Okay, okay. Thank you so much for all your support, everybody. I'm just gonna zip to the questions, the survey link. Okay, the recording will be available. Yeah, so here's a comment. Unfortunately, have received weight loss consults from providers in the past for folks just like James, Healthy Normal Labs, CMI 21. Yes, I mean, I think that part, I mean, I'm just, riffing off of this. Part of what you guys shared is just so relatable, I'm assuming, for many of us. And a nice comment from Kate saying, thank you for sharing, Kimberly. Sorry to hear. It's not actually a question, so I'm going to move on. With a lot of comments, though. Yes, BMI remains a gatekeeper for new programs like culinary medicine. So, let's not throw out the baby with the bathwater. Maybe something good could come from it. Here's an interesting comment from William Suarez. I think we should consider the context of Adolf Hitler, that's how I would say it. I don't know how you say it in English. Findings which were developed during the reign of King Leopold of Belgium. So that, of course, first of all, it's a very long time ago, but also, that was a moment of great. That was a terrible moment, and it's not that surprising, I think. So, William, I think that's something that maybe we will tap you for a talk later. Thanks, Dr. Burt. I'm looking for questions here. A lot of great comment. You obviously hit a chord here, so that's great. Here we go. I am an older adult raising a young child. How do I bridge with these centers? So maybe, Evelyn, we have time for you to respond to that. Let me see if there are other general questions or if people have general questions. Oh, look, you already did. Somebody already did respond. You can call. So, Teresa, I hope you see that you can call this number. Related issue is the need to ensure continuation of these services through reauthorization of the Older Americans Act. Look, the time has never been more pressing, right, with what's going on in our Republican administration writ large in the country. So, again, the timeliness around these two talks is really just, I mean, when we scheduled it, it was quite some time ago and we didn't know. But the work that you guys are doing is just so important. I would love to hear more about the emphasis on nutrition education for medical students. Does anybody have a response, Kate?
Sure, happy to share a little bit about that. That's more in the culinary medicine arena. So, for some folks who aren't familiar with culinary medicine, this is a new initiative, really a new funding initiative for folks to get access to foods through their healthcare providers. BMI is used as one criteria for access to these programs for folks on Medicaid. So BMI becomes a gatekeeper in that way. And there's also some programs as part of the umbrella of culinary medicine. One part is the patient-facing programs, like that use BMI as gatekeeper. And the other part of culinary medicine is nutrition education for medical students. So culinary medicine is about 20 years old now. About 10 years ago, a curriculum called Health Meets Food, which is like the one that's used most often in medical schools now, was introduced. So since then, a couple hundred medical schools have been doing as much as 50 or 60 hours of nutrition education for future physicians as part of their training, as a way to better integrate some information. However, if we remain weight centric and weight focused, then I don't think those 50 hours of education are going to combat some of the biases, including the weight stigma that we see. So that's kind of a brief overview of nutrition education with medical students. It's mostly through the Health Meets Food curriculum at this time.
Thank you, Kate. Let me see. Thanks. Thank you.
There's
Thank you.
another question for Dr. Burt that says, do you see a parallel with what is considered high cholesterol and the prescription of statins to lower cholesterol?
Thanks, June.
Thanks. That's a great question. While I'm not an expert on cholesterol per se, I will share a few thoughts on this. One is that high cholesterol related to genetics is very different than high cholesterol from diet, and we need to start understanding those as different and treating them differently. As I mentioned in my talk, genetics explains a lot about weight. It also explains a lot about other physiology related to dietary health. So I think that's really important. Also, all of this data that Ansel Keys collected using BMI about how bad fat is related to cardiovascular disease, all this research that came out of the 60s and 70s celebrating the Mediterranean diet and its low fat, low cholesterol patterns was all funded by the sugar industry. And I think we really need to be thoughtful about what evidence actually exists. And there are many layers of bias on what is being studied and who is funding that. And, you know, correlation is not causation. So just because two things are correlated doesn't necessarily mean that one causes the other, including related to cholesterol. I don't know anything about prescription rates.
I also want to add, related to what you mentioned about the bias within studies, is that in the 90s, the MacArthur Foundation funded a major national study on successful aging. And the findings were that successful agers tended to be rich, white males who were healthy. And therefore, an older Latina like me did not have a shot to be a successful ager. So that's also, this carries across that bias in what is studied and who is who makes up the subjects has really created a situation where everything is measured against the dominant male population. And that's something that we need to change.
A very good point, Evelyn. Thank you. Any other feedback or comments? I'm going to quick flip through these pages, which is to just see if anybody's hand is up that I missed. It looks like we're good. Any other thoughts or final thoughts on any of this before I give my final sort of wrap-up comments?
I'll mention my former life before becoming teaching at Lehman, I used to be an adult day program director, a medical model adult day program director for many years. So I can identify with everything that Dr. Laureano was saying related to the social benefits and the emotional and the physical and cognitive. And, you know, we provided the meals, we provided transportation, and there was a very diverse group of people, and it was the benefits of the adult day setting for our seniors is unbelievable. And one of the reasons why I stopped doing that was because COVID hit, and we were a part of a big network. So unfortunately, they never ended up reopening that adult day program. But I think that it's something that you know, we need to continue to encourage people to do, because I would go out and speak a lot to a lot of organizations who worked with seniors to let them know about what the benefits are. And one of those is the meals. It was so important. And yes, oftentimes a lot of the seniors that did come to us, that was their only real meal for the day. And they didn't have a lot of support systems at home. So thank you for sharing everything that you shared.
And those are the exact same people who benefit the most from the social dimensions as well, right? So it really is a holistic opportunity. And I see William's hand is up. William?
No, my comment is related to Adolf Ketelet. So it is. I always try to contextualize the BMI because BMI could be contextualized differently if we really studied a bit of Adolf Quetelet's background. I mean, he was a mathematician, Belgium, and in the time in which Belgium was ruling the Congo, so he was connected with African body frame. So, and he designed the original idea of BMI. I mean, not the BMI that we contextualize today, but the original idea was to deal with underweight population. So it was not for whites, it was for a population that was connected to Belgium in that particular time in the history. So, and in that time, if you already have a bit of history, you remember the Congo, Belgium, in which many atrocities happens under Leopold King. So Adolf Quetelet was in contact with Africans population, females and males during that time, and also during the Belgian society that were not necessarily obese in that time. So, so we need to contextualize this a bit more in context of history, because the perception of BMI that just came after, almost a century after, is significantly different. But if we are just going to the roots, we cannot necessarily exclude this perception like it's just only BMI for a particular frame, Anglo-Saxon, Protestant, white, because the original idea was not like that. So I've always said theoretical BMI in my classes, because it's just clear that we need to include much more information when we are just talking about body mass index. It's not just about height and weight and just the circumference. It's by far much more complex than that. So it was my comments. My 25 cents. Thank you for the chance.
Thank you. Thank you, William. Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that I've appreciated about these talks is the depth of, thinking that just has been triggered in my own head. And I feel like, your comments are really adding to that. Again, William, no good deed goes unpunished. So you may hear from us more to share some of this context that you have. So we just have a few minutes left. I want to extend a huge thank you again to our two speakers, and to June and to Dr. Harrison and to everybody I mentioned before. We couldn't do it without you. I also want to raise your awareness to the upcoming talk that we're going to be doing. And that's going to be March 4th, which is also Wednesday, also from 12 to 1. Seems to be like a time that works, at least for many of us. And that's going to be the title of the session is going to be Nourishing the Aging Brain. And so we have two members of our department who are who have very fresh research on this. And we have a community partner who works in the social work field who's going to be looking at consequences on the ground of cognitive impairment and more as it relates to nutrition. So also please complete our survey. I'm just looking at my notes really quickly or June, if I'm forgetting something. Oh yes, I am forgetting something. In the spring, Kate and I have been co-chairing the symposium this fall in her lead up to taking it over herself in the spring. So welcome, Kate, to the position and your leadership in this. We're in very good hands. Of course, I'll be around to support you as needed. But it's great to have the kind of engagement that everybody has shown here today. And I look forward to seeing the direction in which Kate takes the symposium. So thank you all. I think we're coming in right in at 2 minutes. So if anybody has a final thought, now's your time. And otherwise, let's go get lunch. Seems appropriate. All righty. Thank you. We're going to sign off. Or everybody can sign off, or June, you can just sign us all off at once, I believe, by terminating it. But thanks all for showing up. See you in March.
Thanks all.
Thank you so much, all. Have a great day. Oh, I'm trying to leave.
Bye.
Bye, Charlie.